Today, we're making little Korean omelets, and although this probably is definitely not authentic to Korea, at least some of the ingredients hit the right continent this time. We're going to be working with an ingredient that seems to be a little bit controversial. Are they good for you? Are they not good for you? Eggs. You tell me. One of the very first dishes that I ever learned to cook was scrambled eggs. Standing at the stove in my childhood home with my mom watching as I stirred that pan of liquid eggs and watched them go from liquid to solid. Today's recipe comes from another 1970s cookbook called the Fabulous Egg Cookbook. And yes, we do have a focus on eggs today, but we are also going to take this in a little Asian direction as well as we make our little Korean omelets. This recipe only uses a 1/4 pound of very lean ground beef, which we're going to add 1 green onion to, finely cut up. And pro tip here, use kitchen shears. It's a lot quicker than a knife. The recipe called for 1 clove of garlic. I actually used 2. Then we're gonna mash it all together and get that nice and combined. Over medium-low heat, we're going to toast 2 tablespoons of sesame seeds until they're golden brown, and as the recipe says, they're plumping up a little bit. Take those off the heat, put them in a bowl, and then we're going to add some salt to it, a 1/4 teaspoon to be exact, and then using the back of a spoon, we're going to crush those seeds and just try and get those flavors to extract a little bit before adding them into our meat mixture from before, along with 2 tablespoons of soy sauce. We're going to take this meat mixture and turn it into 1/2-inch meatballs. I ended up with about 30 meatballs. Over medium heat, we're going to add about a tablespoon of peanut oil, and then we're going to put our meatballs in there and keep turning them so that they get browned evenly on all sides. Then you're going to take 6 eggs and beat those until they're nice and smooth and a little bit frothy. Then using peanut oil again on a griddle, you're going to put about a tablespoon or so of egg onto the griddle and cook it just until it is starting to firm up. Put 1 meatball on one side, and then you're going to put the other end that is still wet onto the side with the meatball and try to close those up a little bit. It's almost like you're creating a little dumpling, but instead of the dumpling, you are using an egg. Have your oven preheated to its lowest temperature and transfer your omelets to an oven-safe bowl until you have repeated this until all of your meatballs and eggs are used up. The dipping sauce is very simple. You're just going to take a 1/2 cup of soy sauce, a 1/2 cup of apple cider vinegar, and a 1/4 cup of granulated sugar and mix those together. To serve this up, pour some of the dipping sauce into a little serving bowl. To complete the sauce, simply add a pinch of chopped pine nuts. And there you have it, little Korean omelets. Overall, these omelets were better tasting than I expected them to be. They had a really nice flavor with the meat filling. However, I think the egg on the outside was just a little basic. The sesame seeds and the soy sauce in the meat filling created a taste that I was not expecting. It was very good, and I think that the dipping sauce worked fairly well. Although, like I mentioned before, that egg was just a little basic. I think that could have used some flavoring or pizzazz, and it would have been a lot better. This gets a 6 out of 10. The texture was fine. I think it's basically what you would expect it to be. It's soft with the eggs on the outside, The meatball was nice and soft, although it had a little bit of firmness to it as well. And the sauce was fine, but I think it was gritty with that sugar just kind of floating around in there, as well as the pine nuts that were crumbled into it. I just thought the texture of that sauce was weird. So for all of the softness plus the graininess of the sauce, I give this a 6 out of 10. The visual appeal only gets a 5 out of 10 for this one. This dish was definitely not the prettiest dish that I've ever made. The eggs looked, well, like eggs, and where the meatball was had brown discoloration all around it. The sauce had those pine nuts floating in it, which actually was kind of a distraction instead of something that made it look nicer. I think this could have looked prettier. Simplicity gets only 5 points because when I was trying to assemble these on the griddle, they just did not like to come together, and it was nearly impossible to get that half moon shape that you would expect to see and like the recipe called for. So I give this a 5 out of 10 only because they did not turn out the way that they were supposed to. And as a repeat recipe, this is going to get 5 points as well. I did really like the sesame and soy meat filling. However, the rest of it I thought was very mediocre, so for that reason, I don't give it high points for a repeat recipe. That brings our total to 27 points out of 50. That's going to make this recipe our 5th place currently so far. I've got some exciting recipes coming up for future episodes, so stay tuned for that. I'm excited to see how this recipe holds up against those as we prepare to see you again next time on Recipe Reviver.